This week's episode's a real horror show for your ukos, which is ears apparently. Being the adventures of a young man who couldn't resist pretty girls or a bit of the old ultra-violence, went to jail, was reconditioned, and came out a different young man, or was he?
I'm still confused about that tagline.
This is Slashers, a podcast about movies and horror for those who love horror. My name is Jake, and with me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, co-host, and cohort, Ryan. Ryan, say hello to the mutant goons from beyond.
Hello.
So, getting this out of the way, like clockwork, we have some time matters to address with you, our fans. I have expressed my sincere distaste with this segment of our show, the Slay-by-Play, for quite some time. I think it's redundant to tell you a point-by-point recollection of what the movie was. It's tedious, it's humdrum, and frankly, it's beneath me. Let's face it, I'm a big-time podcaster now.
Wow.
No, we want to make it much easier, more palatable content. So what we're going to be doing is saying, fuck off with that segment of the show. We're going to be a little bit more thorough in our recapitation. And that segment of the show is going to be rededicated to us talking about the memorable high points, what they mean, what trivia we could apply to it. And so this is a pilot program for that. We're just basically showing you what it is. We're going to make the show a little bit more brief and more substantive rather than us just regurgitating a movie that you've already seen.
Right.
Cool. Brian, we're doing A Clockwork Orange. This movie's crazy.
This movie's amazing. It's crazy and it's amazing. And it literally stuck in my mind like immediately when you said A Clockwork Orange. As soon as I saw the poster for it, it's so iconic, and immediately just all of the things come back into my mind. Like strangely, it was milk.
Yeah.
Like first and foremost, and I want to say I didn't think it was milk at first. When I had first seen the film, it was definitely something. I don't think I thought it was milk. I was like, okay, it's definitely some kind of maybe coconut milk. I guess it's
like a
obviously
White Russian?
like a, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that makes sense that it's still technically milk. You're an idiot. But yeah, it's not like it's just regular old milk, right? And
It ain't your grandpappy's milk, I'll tell you that.
Well, your grandpappy.
I don't want to milk your grandpappy. Not through his prostate or any other means.
Yikes.
Yeah, so we had talked about the iconography of this film. Like my wife, who has never seen the film and has no interest in seeing the film, I was like, man, I think I have this on DVD when we talked about recording. And she goes, oh yeah, I think you do. It's that movie where the thing looks like this, right? And I was like, oh, so it's so iconic that somebody who has literally no frame of reference was like, oh yeah, I know where that is in my house, and I've never acknowledged it.
Yeah.
I think the last time I saw this movie was basically before she and I were even together. So it's been a while for me too. You said 20 years?
It's been about 20 years.
It's crazy to think that you've seen movies from 20 years ago that weren't just like Space Jam.
Yeah.
You know, like kid movies.
Yeah. When I say that out loud, I find myself really thinking about how old I am.
Yeah. It's all been
depressing.
Completely wasted, right? Sitting there editing our episodes and be like, God, I should be living life to the fullest while my back still works.
Oh, it's cool. I enjoy editing for the time being.
Yeah, right. Give it a minute.
I remember the first time watching this and thinking to myself, okay, so where are the oranges?
Yeah, well, it's some of
Was I not am I the only one?
I had seen enough images to know that it wasn't. I think
There
it was
had
a
to be
metaphorical.
something to do with oranges. Nothing. I'm
Well-
like, okay, I am so literal. You need to have a fucking, yeah.
I'll be the guy who goes, okay, well, I read the book, and so here's the differences.
Definitely do that because I did not.
It's amazing. Truly, I think this is one of the best books that we've ever covered on
So
this
it's
show.
better than American Psycho?
100%. 100%, without question.
I'm
But I
being a
think
little facetious.
no,
there.
I think that American Psycho is almost predicted in the way that Burgess wrote A Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
In that the way that sex and violence are portrayed in that is basically the way that this is.
I thought it was so strange how right off the bat he shows his disdain for homeless people, which is exactly how American Psycho is.
Weird thing, in the book, it's not a homeless man. It's a scholar who's actually a librarian. And what Alex and his droogs do is destroy some books that are irreplaceable.
Oh, okay. You know what? I think I read somewhere in the trivia that they had that in the actual film, but they cut it because the actor of the librarian passed away.
Yeah. 4 hours was the original cut of this film. And
yikes. I would be interested to see it, though.
For sure, at least once.
I think it got destroyed, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kubrick had his assistant destroy everything they didn't use. There is no deleted scene.
What a dick.
But he's a mastercraft, right? Imagine if somebody took like all the riffs that you had ever written on guitar and were like, oh, I'm going to make a new song out of it. You'd be like, hey, fuck you, write your own song. I feel like it's almost like that kind of idea.
I can see that.
Don't you Frankenstein my scraps, you peon. I'm Stanley Kubrick, and I'm weird.
4 hours long, included with 30-minute sex scene.
Yeah.
That's a little awkward.
They sped this one up. That was in real time. Yeah. And also in the book, it's way worse. We'll talk about it. I would like to relay to you, my friend, this is weird. So when it comes to A Clockwork Orange and its publication, right? It was originally published in 1962. It was written in 61. Now, there was a time where Anthony Burges was going to be writing an article for Rolling Stone. Instead, he sends a manuscript of Clockwork Orange to none other than Hunter S. Thompson, who replies, I think even though we're trying to be briefer on this show, I'm going to read this whole fucking thing.
No, I think you need to include everything that's involved. But here's the thing. You have to read it as Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Do you recall?
Dear Mr. Burgess, our winner as forwarded us useless letter. No, I'm not going to do it. From Rome to the National Affairs Desk for my examination and or reply. Unfortunately, we have no international gibberish desk, or it would have ended up there.
Sick burn.
What kind of lame, half-mad bullshit are you trying to sneak over on us? When Rolling Stones asks for a think piece, god damn it, we want a fucking think piece. And don't try to weasel out of any of your limey bullshit with a 50,000-word novella about the condition of humane, etc.
I like how he said 50,000 word and then said novella, because when are novellas 50,000 words?
Do you take us for a gang of brainless lizards, rich hoodlums, dilettante thugs? You lazy cocksucker. I want that think piece on my desk by Labor Day, and I want it ready for press. The time has come and gone when cheapjack scum like you can get away with this kind of scams you got rich from in the past. Get your worthless ass out of the piazza and back to the typewriter. Your type is a dime a dozen around here, Burgess, and I'm fucked if I'm going to stand for it any longer. Sincerely, Hunter S. Thompson.
I like how he ends it with sincerely.
Right?
Sincerely.
Put a nice little bow on this. Man.
Imagine working for that guy.
But what's weird is like, I've read everything that Hunter S. Thompson has written, all of his novels. I haven't read all his articles, I'll admit that. And I'm like, I don't feel like these are dissociative ideas. But it shows you the level of mastery that Burgess has, where it comes across as haphazard as Hunter S. Thompson's murmurings and writings, but it's all constructed in this like, beautiful way. Rather than do some trivia, do you want to talk about NADSAT, the slang terminology language?
Yeah, let's do it.
So basically, this fool creates an entire verbiage for his book. And what he does, he's very mindful of the fact that by the time he would write this to be published, all of that slang that he would have used if he was trying to be hip and contemporaneous would already be outdated.
Wow.
So he's like, I need to pull a J.R. Tolkien. I'm just going to make my own fucking language.
That's what I was just thinking, is he almost pulled like a Tolkien, where he's just like, oh, you know what? This elvish shit sounds pretty cool. Let's fucking create it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. If you look, there are dozens of entries, and what's really interesting, if you like listen to it audio, or I actually had the pleasure of listening to Burgess do several chapters of the book, which was awesome. It sounds so seamless. It just sounds like that's the way people talk.
Yeah.
Like you don't even really think about it. When between you talking about your Yajic and your Roz and your Malchik, like so many of these things are really interesting.
So none of it is Cockney?
It's a little bit of both. So it's like a hybridization. Like we had talked about on the new Slashers Unslashed episode, when it comes to horror show, it's a word Zorosho. And so it's basically putting like a Cockney accent on a Russian word, which is how you get there, which is pretty weird.
Okay.
One thing that I think is super cute, I just have to say it, it's really super cute. The Korova milk bar. Do you know what Korova is in Russian?
No.
It's cow. So it's the cow milk bar. Isn't that the funniest thing you've ever heard?
But then they get milk from girls' tits.
Titties!
Not cow tits. So
That's actually not in the book.
Oh, really?
The titty dispenser, no, which is fine. I don't mind it. This is weirdly like Kubrick's most accurate adaptation.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a significant variance from the original publication of the book. Just you wait, buttfucker.
Did you hear how much of a nuisance it was to keep milk in the titties?
No.
They had to change out the milk constantly because of apparently the heat coming off the lamps would curdle the milk.
Oh, I could imagine.
Disgusting. Imagine hitting that button and just having sludge come out.
Fucking cottage cheese. That's the way all dairy looks to me because I'm a pretty vegan boy.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean,
I hate myself.
I feel like we had to have at least one time where you reminded everybody.
All right. And I'm an attorney. Or it's like,
do you want to have a drink of beer, Jake?
Oh, it's a straight edge.
Oh, there you go.
A straight edge vegan who does CrossFit walks into a bar. Which one does he talk about first? It's not a joke. The joke is the fact that they're fucking straight edge vegan and doing CrossFit. You assholes. I've heard them all before. One thing that was really cool in 2017, it was actually reported that Burgess had referred to creating his own glossary of terms while he was writing, and it was actually found in a manuscript of it. So there's actually a dictionary handwritten by the master himself.
Oh, that's cool.
Super rad, right? So some of the references to this work, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I have in my notes that The Simpsons has referred to Clockwork Orange overtly 12 times in their show.
Wow.
Doing like entire story arcs based on it. One that I think you're going to love. Did you know they reference it on King of the Hill?
I did not. God dang it.
Season 3, episode 22, when the warden is erasing Dale's name from a list of executioners, you have Alex DeLarge on the list.
I like it.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
And if you've ever decided to treat yourself to a Googling, if you ever want to Google, Twitter page yourself.
What is Google?
Flick the gooch and do some Googling and just hit you right in that sweet spot. I would recommend that you do a Google search of Kevin Colden Clockwork Orange. He had actually drawn a construction of graphic novel adaptation of the book, which would be slightly different. And you can see the stylized nature of it and kind of the difference in the way that the book is written to the way that Kubrick adapted it. It's tremendous. I really enjoyed what I was able to see online. And if there's ever a way to support that being turned out fully formed, I would support it.
Hell yeah, that's badass.
In 1973, Mad Magazine did A Clockwork Lemon. You gotta love that, right?
Yeah.
And then in 1965, Andy Warhol did a thing called Vinyl, which he adapted the novel in his own way. I've tried to find that. Vinyl Andy Warhol on YouTube.
Do you think Warhol was involved in the movie at all? It kind of seems like there would be some kind of a Warhol painting somewhere in the background.
Yeah. Okay. So the part that I watched of it was the whole thing. It's only like 2 minutes long. I thought that it was longer. Anyway, yeah, at the very least, the style of it. So his version is 1 hour and 10 minutes. It's nothing amazing, but you can definitely see the artistry. It's super duper mega low budget. So whatever. But yeah, I think that what's interesting is the incredible attention to detail you see in everything. Like imagine just his bathroom. I was thinking about it when you look at the wallpaper. There's this shiny bits. There's the orange bit. There's the yellow chartreuse, I guess, color bits. Like, did you just buy that? Did you pick it out of a catalog?
Right.
Is that 3 different types of wallpaper you put in the same spot? Like all those little things.
And what's also crazy is now that I think about it, when you go back and you look at how he is outside of his immediate home, it's so fucking chaotic and all over the place. You can imagine his room being completely like a mess.
Yeah.
But it's the exact opposite. Everything's in place. Everything's in order. All of his records are neatly in a row. He has everything. All of the shelves are pushed in, the drawers, everything. You know what I mean? So it's weird, right?
We can talk about the true tragedy of this film is the fact his pet snake dies while he's in prison, right?
Isn't that fucked?
It is.
That's so sad.
And so there's multiple legends as to how that snake appears, not in the book. The idea being that apparently Kubrick heard that Malcolm McDowell was afraid of snakes and was like, no, we're going to put a snake in here.
Isn't that great? Because you can imagine working for somebody like Kubrick, who is so detail oriented with everything. Yeah. And then he's like, you guys want to see something funny? Look at this. And you're like, what? You just had me redo the same thing 30 times.
Yep. Bro,
and
crazy,
now you're
right?
going to throw a snake in there? But I guess it just shows how much like control he really wants to have And he's like, well, I don't care if this snake is involved because I'm the one that's doing it.
Yeah.
But if somebody else were to say, hey, you know, it'd be great, let's throw a snake in here, you'd be like, nah, fuck that. We're not doing that at all.
So one other thing was McDowell talked about that he was afraid of vampires. And so that's why when he's having that dream sequence,
He's got fangs?
Yep.
Oh.
It's a reference to it.
That
There's
makes
apparently
sense.
there was deleted footage of him like having his neck sucked on in a coffin, which was like too far or whatever. But I listened to a really interesting interview where McDowell like defended Kubrick and was like, people always say he's so difficult to work with, but he was really collaborative and responsive. And then 9 years later, when he does The Shining, you have like Shelley Duvall be like, stop firing guns. I just want some soup.
Well, I mean, you also have to look at the different state of mind between Shelley Duvall and
Malcolm McDowell. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can imagine there being somebody who's maybe a little bit more confident in themselves. And I'm not trying to say like, whoa, he's Mr. Masculine man and he's full of and confident in himself. And Shelley Duvall being quite the opposite. But just kind of looking at the two, if you were to put them side by side, you can almost sense there's something that's a difference between the two.
And I think there's a certain degree of like misogyny that just kind of implicit.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
absolutely. Right. I mean, you can't imagine him going up to Duvall and playing like hijinks.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, I'm going to be the man and I'm going to tell you what to do and this and that. Hardy.
Well, it's also what he's trying to evoke from them. He wants to have that kind of wry, tongue-in-cheek, jokey joke with Mr. McDowell versus with Duvall. He wants her to be a fawning, wilting lily, right?
Right. That makes sense.
It does. It's almost like he's a fucking genius. I know everybody's heard of the band The Addicts. I actually had the pleasure of seeing them once, and
How were they?
Oh, dude, it was fucking amazing. I've never really listened to them. I'm more of a hardcore and metal guy. I was never really into punk music per se. And so
that's surprising. I feel like you would have been a punk guy.
Nope, hate punk music, most of it. Find it very contrived and just like negligible. Like I find it like the prattling of tantruming children.
I always imagine it's almost just like you're like fight the power kind of thing.
But that's what I like about hardcore music. Because like take for instance Gorilla Biscuit's Start Today. It's talking about like, you know, being empowered, being diligent, doing things, being purposeful, having like a motivation.
Yeah, okay.
Versus punk where it's like, I don't like my dad. Fuck him. You know what I mean?
Unless you get like the little more popular punky stuff. So you get like Anti-Flag.
Okay, I'll admit I do love Anti-Flag.
There you go.
Like if you're feeling alone, listen to like old Anti-Flag and the gang vocals. You'd be like, I'm not alone. I have all these friends in my car with me. Right?
Exactly.
But The Addicts, I was being a designated driver, and it was one of those things like,
where
hey,
was it at?
The Showcase Theater.
Oh, okay.
So it's super small. I actually got
That's
to
a
meet
beautiful
Monkey.
thing about living close to LA is so many different venues.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I also actually in my garage behind you in one of those containers, I have one of the cards that Monkey had signed, and I don't keep like souvenirs. I just liked him as a person because he was
cool.
so nice, and like there was no pretense. I was like, I'd never fucking listened to this band, so I was not fawning. It was just a memory of a nice time with some dude who was great. But they have obviously their whole look is based on this. But they have the song Smart Alex, which is awesome. Have you ever heard the song Troubadour?
No.
Troubadour is my favorite Addict song, and I've listened to it 6 times since we had started researching this episode. I just love it. Other references. You have Train Spotting in 1996. Danny Boyle refers to the bar, Korova Milk Bar. Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. You have Jack Black getting his ass kicked by the Droogs. David Bowie references the Droogs in the song Suffragette City. He says, say Droogie don't crash here. And it's also in the lyrics for the song Girl Loves Me from Black Star. And New Order has a song Ultraviolence, which is a reference to this.
A bit of the old Ultraviolence.
Yeah. You have 1987, you had the Welcome to the Jungle music video where Axl Rose is strapped to a chair just like Alex. The one that I was kind of completely dumbfounded by. Those of you who know, we started doing slammers, which is where we use N64 WWF No Mercy to make horror icons and put it into everything. Well, I downloaded Conker's Bad Fur Day because I'd never played it.
No way.
And so I booted it up. S to G, homie. S to G. I started up and it's bwomp bwomp and it's and I was like, what the fuck?
How did they get away with that?
It was just because it's parody.
Oh, dude.
But it's not the
awesome.
music. It's a different MIDI keyboard.
Right.
And it's pre-Shazam or whatever. And he like does a voiceover and he's glaring at the screen and he drinks out of a white cup so it looks like milk. And I was like, I think I need to play this entire game right now.
That's so cool.
Loved it. Shall we get into the stabtistics for this week?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Budget, $2.2 million. The gross just in North America, $26 million.
Yeah, you can say it was a smash hit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Return on investment over 10 times over. Yes.
But it's also Kubrick.
Yeah.
So
the legend. So it started in December 19th of 1971. And that's competition. 4 days later, Dirty Harry.
that's pretty rough, man.
A few days after that, Straw Dogs, which is another legendary film. In the United Kingdom, it actually was released later on January 13th. One thing I wanted to touch on, in March of 72, you had the Tales from the Crypt movie. So these are my British people just putting out content that I still love today that holds up so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Runtime on this film.
Runtime, I gotta tell you, it's a little rough.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the first half is great. The second half, not saying it's bad, but I do feel like it draws on a little bit.
I could definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Like, for instance, the whole with him being in the penitentiary. Penitentiary. There you go.
They're
That's
trying
the
to be very book accurate there. And that's, I think, to its detriment. I think that you could cut a lot of it, like you
when
said.
it shows like them doing the sermons or them like singing in the classroom with the guy doing kissy faces at him.
Yeah.
Just cut the whole fucking thing. You know what I mean? But it's a lot of voiceover. So I get it. There's a lot of context to it. But at the same time, yeah, maybe cut 15 minutes out of the film. And I feel like I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. So the guys walking in a circle is actually a recreation of Van Gogh's Prisoners Exercising.
Okay.
So that's one of the things you'll see. Like, some of the things in it aren't entirely book accurate. Like the smoochy guy isn't necessarily, and that isn't, but it's also referential to other art and it's adding to it. So I think I liked it more this time because I was analyzing it.
Okay.
But I definitely agree. It's,
you know what? This is kind of strange. I just thought about this. This movie kind of reminds me of The Wall.
Donald Trump's Wall?
Oh, you're so dumb.
Which one? I don't.
Pink Floyd. The Wall.
Duh. I went to that movie. Was it The Great Wall? That like John Cusack in it?
Donald Trump's Wall. God, man.
Sorry about it. I'm gonna put in John Cusack Wall movie. Yeah. Dragon Blade? No, that's not it.
That sounds awful.
There's some movie.
John Cusack's in a movie called Dragon Blade?
Matt Damon? Is that it? All those white fuckers look alike. Yeah, The Great Wall. Okay, well, whatever. I was wrong.
Oh, dude, that looks so bad.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that in previews. Like, ugh,
well,
that
Pink
looked
Floyd's
rough.
The Wall came out 11 years after this. So basically, it's fucking theft.
Fair enough.
No, but The Wall is amazing. I usually don't have patience, but that was one thing I watched and I was like, all right, no hallucinogens in my system, and I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll get on a kick where I'll need to listen to the entire album, The Wall, because it's essentially just like it's the movie played from the first song all the way to the end of the album. Yeah,
you ever do that with Wizard of Oz?
I haven't with The Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
I haven't, but
who has the fucking time? Really?
Yeah, it doesn't really pique my interest.
Oh, there's a shadow of a man hanging himself on the flowers.
I mean, it's a great album. Wizard of Oz is a great movie. I don't need to see them combined.
Here's a question: could we constitute The Wizard of Oz as a horror film or a slasher?
You totally could.
You have our friend the Tin Woodsman with his axe. You
have a house falling on a fucking witch.
Yeah, dude.
Plus, you have the little people.
Oh, the true terror. Giving a little bit of the old in out to those flying monkeys, my brothers.
I'm just kidding.
Ew.
We like all kinds of fans.
Yeah, even if they only half
big
count.
and small.
Yeah. So obviously, the film was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and this was something that I found really interesting because there's a lot of literature on it, but very vague and different overlap. And so some people say one thing and some people say another. Apparently, there were 2 copycat crimes in the United Kingdom. In 1973, a group of men had attacked someone with the Singing in the Rain. And then there was another one of a 16-year-old boy who beat a younger child while wearing the same kind of droog outfit. And so some people had said that Kubrick, of his own volition, pulled the film from distribution in England. Other people
was that true or was that not true? Because I've had conflicting reports where they're like, okay, he felt so deeply troubled between the things that have happened that he's like, no, I need to contact Warner Brothers and completely have it taken down.
That's the other part where people are saying that the police went to him. So that's one of the reasons why when you look up the gross on this film, you only see North America because they don't count England because of that issue. But
I think, didn't they stop distribution of the film until like 2000 or some shit like that?
It was 1999 when the first DVD release was.
That is awful.
That's actually why if you look online, you can find a tagline for the DVD release because it was so people were smuggling pirated copies of this film into the country from like Holland.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that like video stores literally were putting posters up that say, no, we don't have A Clockwork Orange.
Piss off then, yeah. There was actually another guy who was called the crossbow cannibal Stephen Griffiths, who was obsessed with Alex, which is really dark. That guy, for those of you who are into true crime.
You could probably put 2 and 2 together. Crossbow cannibal. He probably did things with a crossbow and killed people and then ate them.
No, he was actually part crossbow and he ate other crossbow. Gotcha.
I'm like, I am so literal with everything. I'm going to completely believe everything Jake just said.
Yeah. As well you should. I've never misrepresented anything ever. I'd stake my bar license on it. Shall we go?
Yeah.
It was written by Stanley Kubrick based on the work of Anthony Burgess. Here's a fun fact. Anthony Burgess wrote a screenplay for this as well, and nobody wanted it.
Oh, poor Burgess.
Really kind of a dark thing that he did. In his adaptation, he changed the writer's last name to be Burgess, and he made it himself. So the bastardization of the guy's work and everything was his own.
Yeah, that's really weird because I've read some reports where people are trying to say that maybe this is Kubrick representing himself. Have you seen that also?
I have as well.
Yeah, and he's like, whoa, come on, guys. No, this is based off of somebody else's work that I'm portraying in my own mind. Right. So it's very different than like the original source material.
100%.
And this is coming from the guy saying, no, yeah, this is about me. And this is all the fucked up shit that I would do. Yeah. Hypothetically. Right. And you're like, is it though?
Yeah. Well, you also get into guys like Bret Easton Ellis, who did American Psycho, talking about the first person perspective and all those things. So it's very interesting to see the way people at least issue their narration. In the book, the term Clockwork Orange is used for the writer's book. So when he's typing at the typewriter, there is no singing in the rain song. I think that's the most obvious trivia when it comes to this movie. Is that was something that
McDowell just came up with because it was the only thing like in his mind at the time, right?
He said it's the only song he could think of.
Yeah.
And basically the song came out of his dance. Kubrick asked him if he had any kind of dance he could do. So he started doing this kind of shuffling
jig.
So he starts humming and then starts singing. And then that's how you get that. Well, in the book, there is no singing in the rain dance. In the book, he basically replaced that scene with him destroying a guy's manuscript of his book, A Clockwork Orange. And he remembers it. And even later on, when he's like in the guy's house, he looks at a copy of the book to find out the author's name. So that tells you like it's referred to multiple times.
Interesting.
The expression comes from that something is, quote, as queer as a clockwork orange, which he had heard in the Second World War. There are different interpretations of what it's supposed to mean. Some people take it to be a strict comparison of like, something natural and something unnatural. Some people want to talk about, just the things being askew or things being like very calculated. The way he had taken it at the time was to be something that was just so weird to subvert nature that it's just bizarre. And basically that's kind of what you get. Like when you have Alex, you have this outside character, which is just a boy, but you get into the construct of his mind and it's just chaos.
Right.
It's unnatural. He is not a natural thing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's fucking bananas. I mean,
no, it's oranges. Boom.
And again, at the same time, the first time watching this, I'm like, but there's no orange juice. Where are the
milk?
Where are the oranges? I don't get it.
Which way did he go, George? Which way?
Yeah, that's Brian.
Yeah.
Are you referencing me as Lenny? Thanks, bud.
Well, you're the one who said it. I could have called you Dim, but I didn't want to get hit with a chain in the face.
It's actually Dimitri. Thank you very much.
Dim. Eitri.
Mm-hmm.
So he originally sold the rights to do this movie to Mick Jagger for $500, and the Rolling Stones were originally going to do an adaptation and play the Droogs. Then there was an indication that the Beatles wanted to do it, and that is how you have the Beatles speaking with Stanley Kubrick about him directing a Lord of the Rings adaptation where they're the Hobbits, which you might remember from our Shining episode.
Yep, absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah, I could just imagine the Rolling Stones PR guys being like, No,
do not.
You're not going to do that. They just have one look at the script and they're just like, wait, 10 minutes in, you're raping her. No, that's a hard pass on that, guys.
Basically, the manager's like, give me shelter from that idea. Rape and murder,
Yeah.
That's actually the lyrics from that song. It's my favorite Rolling Stones song. If you ask me any other one, I'd be like, ooh, under my thumb, and that's about it.
Yeah, the PR guys are like, usually you do this behind the scenes with the groupies.
Yeah,
we're not doing it on the actual film.
I think they had something a little bit more potent than some tainted milk when it comes to how they were keeping it active.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know what Keith Richards is on, but my God, the guy's going to live forever.
I think he just transfuses his blood with unicorn.
No, that's not true.
It does. Unicorn blood. They get the unicorns from Russia. One thing that Burgess said that I thought was very interesting in referring to Kubrick, he was very complimentary of the fact that Kubrick didn't give a, quote, facet explanation of the title. You'll notice that you don't even see the manuscript.
Right.
And so there's no reference to it all. He just keeps it kind of bizarre. And I think that's actually very poetic. I think that it's one of the more interesting elements because, like you said, it kind of adds to the riddle of you trying to figure everything out.
Yeah,
Every scene
they don't need to explain everything. You just have to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things a lot of people pointed out was that Burgess was making a very specific social commentary at the time as far as like teenagers and whatnot, which isn't necessarily true. And one of the things when he had created NADSAT, he was talking about in Russia having the same kind of problems with teens and everything. And obviously in England at the time, you had that kind of distress and civil unrest. Well, he was also raised as a Catholic and he believed in original sin. And he says, quote, I think that man is inherently bad or inherently antisocial. So his whole thesis of humans and their condition is that basically we're kind of bad. And at the very least, we're self-serving. And these are the problems that we have. And so
is that kind of in a way like almost like people are inherently leaning more to the left or more to the right based off of, and this isn't the political thing. This is just like, you're either more good or more bad. Like here's a number scale, right? You're either 50 here or 0 here, 0 being bad, 50 being good. If you're like 35, you're like, okay, well, yeah, you're slightly on the, you're not 25 where you're in the middle.
Yeah.
That's almost where he was at, essentially.
Basically, he said, because the original sin being like the fact that you're born of a sexual nature and everything, like you are inherently sinful based on Eve's sin, right?
Oh.
And so one of the things he referenced was St. Augustus, who referred to Adam as, quote, oh, happy fault since it produced so great a redeemer, in saying that the fucked up things of like basically creating sin was fine because it created Jesus. And it was really interesting to hear that from him, the horse's mouth, and then go and read the book. Like we talked about a million times on the show. I have like just a serious uncomfort when it comes to any kind of sexual deviancy or anything like that. It just doesn't work for me. And I'm not saying I enjoy it in this film, but it feels so purposeful because you need these people to be abhorrent. And that shows in the narrative for Alex. So just bear that in mind as he's talking about it. Because one of the things he also cited in Original Sin was being a symbol for a man deciding his own destiny and in doing so creating art and literature as a byproduct.
Huh.
Because of strife, you have these things to comment on or recreate or do whatever. If it was just the Garden of Eden, nobody would have fucking do those things. But because of that, you have the situation. So think of, if not for Alex and the droogs being fucking terrible, there is no narrative to have.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's crazy.
He's a super brilliant dude.
So here's the other argument that I come up with when it comes to the people that think about the original sin thing. Maybe this is me just not completely understanding it. So he goes off of saying people have the original sin because they have lust, they have sin, they're man, this is what you do. Did he have kids? Did he end up having sex with a woman to provide children? Is that considered a sin? So is he not a sinner himself? How does that work? Are you considered not lustful if you're married or something? Is that like something where it just basically just like, well, I'm going to wipe the slate clean because we're technically, we have our name on marriage license.
That's one of the, it depends how Old Testament you want to get, because there are people who talk about like marriage or like, lust being outside of marriage. He did have a child, Andrew Burgess Wilson. I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah. So by this point in his life, he even addressed that, he had developed these views, but when you're being raised, it's very much black and white. It's that you're a bad person.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Being raised in a church where the perception is you as a child, you are bad. And think of how formative that is, and think of the perspective of Alex.
Yep.
basically like, but for the terrible things he does, like he's a normal guy, right? And that's kind of going to Burgess's upbringing.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Yes, sir.
So we have music by Wendy Carlos, who also did music for The Shining and Tron. I'm going to try and play an audio clip right now from two different films. One you might have heard of called A Clockwork Orange, and another you might have heard of called The Shining, which is going to show the Dye's eerie musical sequence. And if it sounds terrible through my laptop speakers, then I have to actually rip MP3s. So here's
essentially
hoping.
called A Clockwork Shining.
Yeah, there we go. Now this part is from A Clockwork Orange. Now this part is from The Shining.
It's just a different tone.
Crazy, right?
Same musician, right? Or the same.
Yeah, Wendy Carlos.
Okay.
Who absolutely brilliant. I mean, you have to look at the making of the music on this, because this is in a time where synthesizers are literally a synthesizer machine at this point looked like an operator's chords where they're like, operator, connect you. Remember when you go to Old Spaghetti Factory and they'd have all those wires you'd connect? Yep. That's what synthesizers looked like at this time. So you have this lady who is surrounded on all sides by these giant towering things with a bunch of wires sticking out just to make sounds. And so one of the things she did, and I think we can agree quite effectively, was recreate classical music with these synthesizers to make just it's a wholly unique sound, which I think to me, it's timeless. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing that I think of when it comes to The Shining. And now that I've watched The Clockwork Orange again, it's the same thing. You immediately get drawn into the movie based off of the beginning of the song.
So shall we just talk about the actors? I don't think that we necessarily have to do nicknames anymore. I just kind of want to give them their spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Malcolm McDowell, man, right off the bat. And I got to tell you, I was telling Michelle last night as we were watching the end of the film when she came home, hey, you know who this actor is? And she's like, I've never seen that guy in my life. I'm like,
yeah, you have. You definitely have.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much stuff this guy's been in.
Like British Tony Todd. Yeah.
That's a good, I like it.
Thanks. I thought it was really interesting that Heath Ledger said that he got a lot of his inspiration for his rendition of the Joker from Alex.
Okay. I can kind of see that.
Have you ever seen the Tom Waits interview that he ripped off?
No.
There's a Tom Waits interview. It's with some Australian talk show host, and Heath Ledger was Australian, and you got to watch it. He is just the Joker. It's like the weirdest thing, like ha ha ha, and that gravelly voice. And
interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting, but like it totally makes sense because when you see that interview, when you see Tom Waits, and you add equal parts Alex from this, just, oh, that's clear as day.
Cool, nice.
And then I also read about Heath Ledger having a shrine to the Joker in his house when he died, and I'm like, I don't need to know this.
I could have gone without that.
Yeah, dude,
that's cool.
I don't give a fuck. It feels so invasive for some reason.
I feel like last time I recall something about Heath Ledger when he died, apparently he was hanging out with one of the Olsens or both.
Ooh. They murdered him.
They might have murdered him.
You know what?
He got a hold of some of their prescriptions because they're definitely on something.
They're gelflings. Did you know that?
I don't know what that is.
That's from the Dark Crystal. They're puppets. They look like puppets. They're gelflings. Also, I think they might have murdered him so that they could try and solve his murder and bring back their little movie series where they were detectives. Wasn't Mary-Kate and Ashley a detective?
You got it, dude.
That's dark. Also, their sister, fine. Scarlet Witch. Have you seen all the times where Chris Evans has been caught checking her out on
That's her sister?
Yeah.
What?
She's an Olsen, yeah.
Mind blown.
Do you feel old as fuck? Because that's her younger sister.
That's crazy. Yeah. Wow. I like it. Yeah,
but Chris Evans, he definitely seems to have a thing for her because he's always looking, and people paparazzi always take a picture. I'm like, Captain America, we got good taste, son.
Yeah, there you go. About them redheads, huh?
Mm-hmm. One of the characters I really wanted to address, I love Aubrey Morris, who plays PR Deltoid. Yes. The truancy officer.
Oh, right.
God, that guy's cringy, man. He is so good.
That's definitely one of the parts of the film where I'm like, I don't feel comfortable watching this.
Yeah, at all.
I was just watching a rape scene and then this, and I'm like, maybe let's do without this over the other one.
Okay, totally, for sure.
But it was weird, right? It's just Malcolm in his underwear, and then the whole hand on the thigh, hand on the crotch, And Malcolm's kind of okay with it. Like, he's like, this is just how this guy is, right?
Yeah, it's like a power play, and who would believe him anyway? It's very, there's a lot being said there. And he does it, like, the thigh touching is in a sensual way. The genital grabbing is in a violent way.
Yeah.
You could write a whole fucking dissertation just on that, right? There's so much to unravel in this movie. One person I also wanted to address, David Prowse, one Darth Vader.
Oh, that's right.
He's the guy who lifts up our writer friend.
I'm like,
in his
oh
wheelchair.
yeah, I remember that super buff dude lifting up the guy in the wheelchair, and you're like, you mean Darth Vader? I'm like, what?
So he plays Julian, and this is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. So we're obviously big fans of David Prowse, probably more for his rendition of one of the Frankensteins from Hammer Films than for that little Star Wars-y movie, but whatever. In this, he allegedly, legend has it, goes up to Stanley Kubrick and goes like, hey, but I don't want to fuck up my back, so don't take too long. And Kubrick's like, a big pardon, I'm Stanley Kubrick. And he goes, you aren't exactly known as one take Kubrick, are you?
Oh, man.
So how many takes does it take? 6.
That's awesome.
Compared to Shelley Duvall with 150.
That's awesome.
Dude.
That's pretty cool.
But also, did you see his gnarly ass wedgie in them short shorts?
Dude, there was a lot of questions.
I saw Darth Vader's butthole, and all I got was a stupid t-shirt.
There's a lot of questions going on the second time around when he gets back to that house.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. First of all, where's the wife? Okay. I find out later what happened to the wife. But secondly, did you getting completely destroyed and crippled turn you into somebody that prefers the other side?
There's a certain degree of sensuality there.
So many questions. I'm like, why is he in that outfit? I guess that is
who wears shorts.
No, that's not shorts. Those are Speedos.
Yeah. But I mean, have you seen the ham hocks that Darth was smoggling in them?
Yeah, man.
Dude.
Pretty gnar.
Meaty cleave.
Yeah. I like it.
Any other droogs or anybody who you think really deserves? Obviously, you got, so the 3 droogs be George, Pete, and Dim. Dim steals the show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's got to be Dim with his stuttering and everything.
I don't like you to do what you've done.
Patrick McGee, definitely, right? Dude, that's the guy, right? In the wheelchair?
Yeah.
Patrick McGee, exactly. So
that dude chews the butt fucking scenery, doesn't he?
His face throughout the movie, it almost looks like he's taking a shit.
Like Scanners or something, right? He's going to pop someone's brain off.
He's like looking up and down aggressively, and then, yeah, it almost seems like he's having a seizure.
And when he hears Alex singing in the toilet and he's looking at the door, that's the exact same shot that Kubrick would use years later when Jack is trying to get in at Wendy in The Shining.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Fucking crazy.
It's cool because I don't take that as like him being necessarily self-referential or like self-aggrandizing, or like a one-trick pony either. I think that's just like kind of like, I don't know, it's something kind of beautiful about the way that it kind of overlaps.
Yeah, I can see that.
Any other points that we want to talk about before we get into
what was the Chiefs guy's name? I forget his name, but I feel like
Chief Guard Barnes?
I told you the funniest line that I remember in the film, at least from him.
Yeah, it's Michael Bates was the actor.
Yeah, so my favorite thing from the chief from the movie is, I feel like his best line, "Shut your filthy hole, you scum." It's when he's talking and he's initially giving Alex the tour of the prison, and he's like, stay behind the fucking line and, tell him your name, and then you address me as sir, and then Alex starts saying something. He's like, shut your filthy... And it's funny how he yells everything, and it's just like way over the top.
I love when he checks Alex in at the facility and the guy's like looking at him like, you need to calm the fuck down. Right?
Yeah, at the doctor when they're trying to like cure him,
register
essentially.
Him,
yeah, absolutely.
Fun trivia there. So when he's registering Alex in with them, if you look at the directory behind them, there's actually a sign that points to the cinema. So like, I just thought that was cool because if either they found a hospital that already had that or they had to put that in, but it was just a great attention to detail. But yeah, basically, like I said, we're not really going to go through everything the same way that we used to. This is going to be more just talking about the stuff that like
kind of sticks in your mind, right?
Exactly. And I think kind of the context we want to do is like, what are you never going to forget from this movie? What would you like to forget from this movie? One thing that I thought was super cool, if you look in the record shop, you'll see that Alex is standing right in front of the soundtrack for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I did notice that.
Super cool.
Yeah, that's fun. It's cool because I feel like it's just like a little bit of a humble brag.
Yeah, right. Sorry about it. Just kind of recreated a generation and oh yeah, I faked the moon landing, suck my dick.
Hey, how about this little film right here? I mean, maybe you heard of it. I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Just melted your butt fucking mind.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think for me, honestly, it's probably the most iconic thing I can remember. And it's sad because it's from the poster, but it's him and the milk. It's the very beginning of the film, and it's him smiling with a glass of milk. And you're like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm in for.
Yeah, dude, it drops you in the deep end for sure. And that's the thing, like the book does that too, but like the mastery of that NADSAT slang, it just feels so normal. You don't even question it.
Yep.
And the movie does such a killer job of like everything is fucking weird.
Yep.
You have naked mannequin women for tables and milk spouts. You have a bunch of old women who have like wigs that are brightly colored. There's actually, even in the deleted scenes.
Why is his mom so old?
She's kind of depicted, M and P are depicted as kind of being older in the book too.
Okay. Because, I mean, I feel like the dad seems age appropriate. The mom, I don't know, man. Maybe it was just the way I expected her to look compared to how she was actually portrayed.
It's a frustrating thing because in the book he's 15 to 17, in the movie he's older, but in the book everybody who's over 30 is the same age to him basically.
Oh, you know what? That makes sense.
It's like a funny joke where he's like, oh, you know, because when the other guy moves into the house,
as one is as a teenager, you're just like, oh, you're fucking old.
Yeah.
You know,
when the other guy basically takes his place as their kid, he's like, basically, what pisses him off most is like, you're almost as old as them. Stop acting like they're your parents, you fuckwit. He's so good.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever noticed Stanley Kubrick's use of the 7 diamonds?
I don't even know what that is.
Okay. So, quote, a rainbow spans a continuous spectrum of colors, said Newton in 1672, giving you 5 main colors, and if you include orange and indigo, it gives you 7 colors. And so that's the 7 prisms being the 7 diamonds. So if you look in this film, when they actually go to the Duke of York pub, if you look behind them, there are 7 diamonds in the wood filigree. If you're watching The Shining and you have Jack, there's a tapestry behind him where there's 7 diamonds. If you look at Full Metal Jacket, there's a sign behind him, 7 diamonds. If you look in 2001: A Space Odyssey, again, 7 diamonds.
That's crazy.
I had never noticed it when I was researching this one. It came up, but not when we did The Shining, which was very weird to me that I hadn't seen that.
Huh. So that's strange. So what's the significance behind the diamonds?
It's a reference to basically all of color, because that is what a rainbow is the 7 prism, and a prism being the shape of a diamond in this scenario.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So basically he's giving you a reference to all that your eyes can perceive in just some geometric shapes. But this is also a guy who used to do computational mathematics just for fun. So
I read somewhere that he had an IQ of 200.
260,000 maybe.
Dude, but I mean, in reference to like Isaac Newton and a few other like notable characters with the IQ of, are relatively the same. So I mean, this guy was fucking super smart.
Well, you want to talk about how super smart he is? He got that girl who does the titty dance to show off the panties for a long time. You want to talk about that?
No, that is definitely using the old noodle for some diabolical shit right there.
And she has that fucking Stockholm syndrome.
She ended up being like, yeah, you know what? I wanted to do it for him. I was like, at some point, this is maybe a little creepy. And then at the end of the day, she was just like, I mean, I can take these panties off if you'd like.
So for those of you who don't know, there's the exhibition where Alex licks the guy's shoes and looks at the girl in her titties, and he's like, oh. Well, she asked Kubrick what color panties she should wear. So he reportedly sent her back to the department store multiple times to buy multiple pairs, to model them multiple times in front of him for an extended period. And she even defended him, being like, well, no, he's just a perfectionist. It's like, sweetheart, no. He's a bad man.
Yeah. I wonder how many other guys are claiming they're just perfectionists also.
Right?
Huh?
Just gotta see. Spending 23 years in jail, some of them. Did you notice that when Alex is being arrested by our friends Dim, and I believe it's Georgie, their agent numbers 665 and 667.
He's in the middle. 666.
The number of the beast.
Oh, what's that band?
what? How dare you?
I don't know about you, but when they were holding his breath underwater, I held my breath and I'm like, I would have died. I'm pretty sure I would have died.
I wonder if he had a snorkel or anything under there, but yeah, it was.
I think they did have like an underwater breathing apparatus or something, and where he just like was able to throw it on. Because, dude, honestly, anytime there's water involved, I hold my breath
for sure.
I'm like, no, you know what? None of this means anything to me.
Yeah.
Right? These are people with aliens and fucking all kinds of shit, and I don't believe any of that. But as soon as it comes to somebody taking a deep dive or something, I'm holding my breath with him, and I'm like, nope, fake.
Yep. That's what I couldn't stand about that Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise holds his breath. I was like, fuck you, fuck your Thetans, fuck Xenu.
I just went full on Donnie. I'm like, wrong, fake news.
Fake. Oh, God. So apparently this is a story that Gene Kelly once ran into Malcolm McDowell at a party and basically snubbed him in disgust over his use of Singing in the Rain.
I mean, you can imagine being such a cheerful song.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's the great, beautiful juxtaposition, right?
I understand that.
Yeah.
But when you create this song and you're just like, you know what? This feels like an amazing tune to cheer up somebody's day.
Yeah.
And then it has something like this related to it.
That'd be like, if I may, if you're Geppetto, you make a little Pinocchio, right? You're like, oh, it's my pride and joy. It's my little Pinocchio. And then you find out somebody made shit fetish porn with him. And you're like, what the fuck? Why did you do that to my puppet, you sick prick?
I had no idea where this was going. But yeah, I guess, Pinocchio and shit covered porn.
Woo!
Why not? Absolutely.
Let's do it.
I mean, his nose is definitely going somewhere.
Yeah. You ain't lying.
Ayo.
So apparently Kubrick spent 10 grand on the rights to it. And apparently he got the rights within a matter of hours because he was so into this idea. He immediately is like, I need the rights to this song. It's mine now. And could you imagine Gene Kelly's like, you did what with who? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, because now if you think about it, Gene Kelly in hindsight's like, nah, you know what? Give me more.
Yeah. 10 grand to ruin my life. Nope.
Not worth it.
I thought it was super cute that in the book, Alex refers to swastikas as those crooked crosses little kids at school like to draw.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I was like, oh, but that's one of the things that's amazing in both the book and the movie is the depiction of culture having basically devolved to the point where from our culture to rape is crazy. From the way it's depicted in the movie and to that, like that almost becomes like a statement of society more so than the character.
Yeah.
Not saying it's justified. It's cringy and it's meant to make you feel cringy. You are not supposed to like Alex, but it's very interesting the way that's presented.
Well, it's what's so crazy and memorable in my mind is how they almost are likening the rape to like childlike behavior, right? It almost seems like there is predation to what they're doing, but at the same time they almost seem like they're oblivious to it.
Yeah,
right.
They're
like,
true.
well, I don't know, am I doing something bad? Right? It's like a kid that just does something bad and then you're like, no, that's wrong, and they're like, huh, I have no idea.
Yeah, basically that's very much the way it's implied in the book as well, where he doesn't really understand the ramifications.
If there's no rules set in place for what's right and wrong, how am I to know that this is wrong?
Yeah, and the girls in the record shop in the book are only 10 years old and he's 15. And he rapes them. It's not consenting.
Super fucked.
It's super dark. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that it's awful. But then again, like when you hear Burgess talk about the Redeemer, because this is the big difference that we're going to get into. The book in America is this movie. It ends the same way. When it was the original manuscript and the version that was released elsewhere has an extra chapter where everything changes. It changes the entire point and purpose of the book. You had even texted me at the end of the movie being like, that's the end? Like, is he dead? Like, does he have a seizure?
Well, it's so strange, right? In the end, I mean, was I off base when I
No, not at all.
Asking you, okay, so all the cameras and all the media and everybody's like, oh my God, he's a local hero or this or that.
Yep.
And then we're going to give him all the press, right? And then his eyes roll in the back of his head. And then there's just a scene of him in like a pile of cocaine fucking a girl.
Yep, with
and
people watching.
You're like,
which is in the book,
is this in his brain?
Yep.
Like what he's imagining happened, or is this what's actually happening?
So that's a manifestation of the fact that his brain is back. And if you just...
But if you were to look at a couple scenes prior to that, you would know that this is the fact when you have the psychiatrist asking him all of these things, and he's like, smash up the eggs, fuck him, smash him in the face.
Yep.
He would not be saying that if his brain was still like, okay, violence is bad.
But that is in theory. This is in the idea of him doing it, which takes it to a completely different step.
Okay.
And so this is really important because in the book, it's not the act of the therapy that causes him to stop being a hoodlum. It's growing the fuck up.
I thought it was Ludwig van.
Yeah. So
don't play the 9.
Which gets into the question of, I just realized that the Beatles number 9 might even have some reference to this as well. But in it, basically, like it's implied, you have the minister of the interior / inferior, as the joke in the book, basically says, I'm going to give you a cush job. You're going to like basically curate music for the state. You're going to be paid very well. Alex goes about his merry way, gets 3 new droogs. He's back at the Crova milk bar, and he's just fucking over it. He has a picture from a newspaper of a baby. He wants to be a dad and just like grow the fuck up and move on. And that's what this is about. Like, this is about overcoming the impetuousness of youth. And there's so much more to it.
So it's just essentially growing up.
Yep. But growing up of your own accord, not because somebody makes you grow up.
Right.
Which is super interesting.
I mean, and it's interesting because it shows how the reform isn't something that always works. Right.
It's brutal in its own right, too. Right.
Exactly. It's something that you have to want to change.
Yeah.
Not that something that you are being forced upon.
Exactly. There's a question as to the violence, because remember, they depict Alex as a victim after he's gone through this therapy. And so it kind of goes to that. But that's something I really wanted to address. Where I'm at in life, I'm about to be a father a second time. I'm about to have my first son. And Alex specifically refers to this like vision in his mind of his son being in the next room. So as I'm reading this, I'm like, man, this is so much different than when I was a kid. And it was like kind of almost a coming of age to where I was like, wow, like I get this in a completely different way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's always interesting to think about. And, I feel like everybody kind of does like a little bit of self-reflection as far as like the kind of shittier stages of life, right? Where you're just like, hey, you know what? I probably wasn't a very good person at this time in my life or at this age of my life. And then you're just like, God, I've really come a long ways.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not something that society can really force upon you. That's something that you need to do for yourself.
Well, we were just talking to your brother, and he was talking about like being a naive right-wing kid and talking about himself being a quote dumb shit fuck. And then 2 years later, he's like, nah, but he didn't think he was being evil at the time. It was just different. And then you realize like how narrow-minded or how so many things you say have these negative repercussions.
You almost just look at the big picture, right? Instead of what's just in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's what's so hard to kind of explain to kids growing up, because
it's such a narrow focus, right?
It's literally like, okay, I got this and I'm focused on this.
What does Tina think of me? Does Tina like me? I need Tina to like me.
You're not thinking of, okay, well, this is going to lead to this, because this is going to lead to this, is going to lead to this. There's nothing about that at all.
You want to be like, sweetheart, you don't care what Tina thinks. She's a dumb asshole. You care about your reputation, like those things. You care about being a good moral person.
I just want to try and get my dick wet.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Dude, them hormones is legit. I kind of wanted to end us on a couple of higher notes that are a little bit more silly, if I may, because I knew I was going to get a little off the rails.
Well, I mean, honestly, this movie, though,
is dark. It's very dark. One of the gross things, so when PR Deltoid spits in Alex's face.
Dude, it doesn't look like they're CGI.
No, it's spit.
That's actually spit.
But it's not his spit in the movie. It's Steven Burkoff doing the spitting from off screen, because Aubrey Morris had spit so many times in this kid's face, he could not produce more spit.
Sounds like a porn.
Ew. Malcolm McDowell broke a rib during the demonstration scene, and that's actually the take that's used. But because he didn't get it treated, he developed a blood clot.
Oh, Jesus.
Suffering for your art. And here's the piece de resistance. What I, as a vegan, found to be the funniest fucking thing in the world. All of Alex's worldly possessions are sold. And why are they sold? For victims' relief. For the old lady who he kills in the book, very accidentally, in this, with a cock-shaped statue. And you're sitting there thinking, but she's dead. Where does the money go? to pay for a
To the
caretaker for
To the
her
cats.
cats.
Oh, that's so fucking good. Oh my God. How did I not? Oh,
I love it.
That
'cause
is so good.
in the
Dude,
book, he's basically like, "You're fucking with me right now. Where's my stuff?" They're like,
there are a lot of cats.
Yeah.
Like they mention, oh, she's like has a lot of cats and it's like this health spa, blah, blah, blah. And then it shows her like going and working out. And then you're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dude, that's like 20 cats. Jesus Christ. I see carpet and everything smells like cat piss.
"No time for the old in-out, love. I'm just here to read the meter."
Yeah.
That's A Clockwork Orange, man. Like this is a fucking classic. If I've ever seen a classic.
It's great.
It's tenuously horror, though, I have to admit. It's
Definitely-
psychological horror, if anything.
Definitely something that I feel like everybody needs to see at least once.
This is a rite of passage movie for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually really like when he gets hit in the face with the milk. I forgot to mention that earlier. In the book, Dim hits him in the face with the chain. But in the movie,
In the movie, it's
the milk bottle,
it's a
which
milk
ties
bottle.
it back to the beginning. And then, yeah, I just think that imagery is super great. Do you think that this beats what's our current classic champion for this?
I don't even have to know what the current classic champion is. I would say yes.
Do you think that it's horror enough to dethrone it?
I feel like just on material alone, it has
Oh,
enough
it's
merit.
The Fly is the current rating.
Ugh. So that's tough.
Yeah.
Because as far as body horror, like, I mean,
Versus
it's
psychological horror.
Cronenberg and then it's psychological horror, and there's obviously both have their merits. And you can obviously say between one or the other, what's worse, rape or body horror? And you're like, well, I mean, from like a moral standpoint, I'm clearly going to say rape is worse.
Yeah.
But you know, it's that is really tough.
It is. And I think that without people like Kubrick, I don't think you have the same Cronenberg that you have. But I'm personally going to say that I think The Fly is more of a horror, but that's not, I'm
going to give it a very closely contested second. I'll say The Fly beats it as well.
Awesome. I appreciate you making that concession for me, your best friend.
I guess.
Aw, shucks. I guess so. Well, Brian, I think it's time to be wrapping this up. I'd like to plug our Patreon patrons. For those of you who have tuned in, we're doing a new project where we're, like I said, we're cutting out some of the just nonsense.
I don't want to call it fluff, but it might be fluff.
The regurgitation. Yeah. I mean, I don't want us to be reciting what happens in a movie. If we're talking about parts of the movie, it should be for a purpose, right?
And we're also just hitting the focal points
Yep.
that you're more than likely going to understand.
Yep.
It's not something where these little hindrances here and there of this minor part of a film that you're not really going to give a fuck about.
Yep. And on the side, we have Slashers on Slash, which is just, if you want the nonsense and the ramshackle schlamadoos, just us talking about whatever, and you can vote and be a part of it. If you've rated, subscribed, liked, done anything, we super appreciate it. If you ever want to screen cap your review and send it to us, I will be happy to read it on the air. I'll read it in whatever accent you decide. I'll read it backwards if it makes you so happy. Nothing would tickle my pinker stinker and make me thinker while I'm giving Brian a big old winker.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Now, my sign off is a reference to The Shining, with the all work and no power play instead of all work and no play. Do you think for this year we should do something that makes it reference Clockwork Orange?
I mean, we could.
Because it is another Kubrick film.
Maybe I should change mine. I think I'm going to change mine up.
What are you going to do?
There's no time for the old in out. Have a good night.
That was a real kick. Good for laughs and slashings of the old ultra violence instead of lashings.
I like
Because
it.
the name of our show is Slashers.
There you go.
This is Slashers Unslashed. And you're like, what's that? What's Slashers Unslashed? I don't know that intellectual property.
Do go on, Jake.
Slashers Unslashed is a new project we're doing for Patreon patrons, wherein every week you'll be getting a bonus, approximately 20 minutes to a half an hour of us just talking about whatever. And basically, it's going to be the more free-form discussion because we want to keep our episodes being analytical and informative and not just us putzing around going, I think blank. Well, I think blank.
We're not adding multiple veins to the storyline.
Yeah.
We're sticking to the point when it comes to the episodes. Whereas here, we're just whatever comes out of our little noodles is what's going to be said.
Exactly.
You know?
And if you want to be part of the noodling discussion, you're a patron, you'll be able to vote on topics, submit topics.
Would you ever noodle?
Would I noodle?
Yeah. Do you know what noodling is? Where you stick your hand in a hole in the water I finished that in a different way than you thought.
Oh, catfish. Where you pull out a catfish?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I said when you stick your hand in a hole and you're like, wait.
Hey, is it a wet hole? Is it a brown wet hole? Do you know how many people die a year doing that?
It's so crazy. They get sucked under and it's like literally 2 feet of water.
Yep. Catfish strong.
Yeah. Imagine like the person upstairs reading how you die and they're like, really?
Yeah. You're like, can I enter Valhalla, please? And they're like, you didn't die in battle. And you're like, well, it's a really big catfish. So
right.
I feel. Could you fucking imagine? There's like Thor over there. It's like, I've killed 700 Frost giants. And then there's Cletus who's like, well, I was fist deep.
Why does it have to be Cletus, huh? Why can't it be Travis?
Devontae is probably not going to be there. Not trying to be racist anyway.
It probably is not Devontae.
I think racist against white people. Like the white guy is the only person fucking stupid and privileged enough to think this'll work out fine.
All right, so it was Cletus. That's fine.
Well, you Cletus.
So yeah, if you enjoy listening to us rant about noodling or anything else for that matter, I mean, we'll have polls up, and I feel like if you guys have any ideas, anything you want to talk about, if you want to talk about a current event, if you want to talk about something that's happened in the past, just let us know.
Yeah, because one of the things we've always talked about on the show is we want to keep it timeless, right? So doing current events while it's entertaining and it gets us more metadata.
That's crazy. For a second there, with such mass hysteria going on, I thought you said keeping up with Corona events.
No. But we want to make sure our episodes are accessible now or 4 years from now. And so by not going, hey, did you hear about the Invisible Man movie?
Yeah,
it
exactly.
gives it a little bit more of that. Did you see the set photos of the Batman? Oh, do you like his car? Oh, I'm going to talk about a car that I've never seen in motion. I mean, there's a place for those shows, but those shows are like generally already established and they're not fighting to get a fucking foothold anywhere. Like, just if I may get into metadata for a second, we have thousands of followers across our various social media. When you factor it in, we have over 20,000 followers between everything, right?
Yeah.
Our episode downloads are basically 1% of that at times, which is just unfathomable. So, the support we can get would be great. And this is a way we can give you exactly what you want for the people who actually are listening. And
which is essentially our patrons. And we appreciate you guys.
So this episode is free. And, this is out of the kindness of our hearts because this is basically a pilot episode. Hopefully it's more entertaining than our Event Horizon pilot episode. I still feel guilty about that. Whenever somebody's like, oh, I like that episode, I'm like, did you listen to the same episode?
Did they listen to anything else?
Yeah, right.
Or is that the only episode?
Well, I've had a few very sweet people reach out to me lately and be like, oh, I started listening at episode 0 and I'm on like episode 20. And I'm like,
that is so awesome.
How could you do that?
But you know what? You actually can get through the progression of the show and you can really tell. I mean, this is not just me self-grading myself and being like, wow, you did so well. Like,
gold star.
It was rough.
Yeah. Which is great. I think that your progression is huge, and being able to do things with the main show by being point-purposed, analytic is going to help us in terms of our talking points there. Also, Brian and I have talked about this for a long time. We're going to phase out the slay by play. Frankly, if you're listening to an episode about the movie, you've probably seen the movie. So it makes no sense for us to sit there and strictly adhere to, well, then this happens and this happens and this happens. We're going to talk about more discussion. We're going to talk about more trivia. We're going to be more substantive in talking about why these things are important rather than what the things are.
Yeah. And I feel like there's going to be certain talking points that we go through during each episode, what we like about the movie, what we dislike, if there's anything we would like to add, if there's anything you guys would like us to include as far as talking points, just let us know. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some things that we miss. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be great.
And for those of you who don't know, I'm about to be a dad again, which is to say that I'm having a second child, not that my child that I have now is being reborn. And my son is going to be coming in August. So this is a great way of allowing us to make sure that we don't actually have to take a break from my paternity leave. We'll be able to keep things going smoothly this way. So, for those of you who've been loyal to us, we appreciate you. Like, legitimately, we do. And, we've talked about it before. For our Patreon patrons, we don't want to just take your money and pay for advertising to give away something for free. We'd
Right.
rather just work with you and be able to do things and create good content that's something that you actually crave, as opposed to just like, oh, I guess I'll tune in because I want to hear Jake say butt fucking again.
Right. We're doing this specifically for you guys, and we're not going to take your money and just be like, well, I guess this is what you're getting and you have no say in the matter. So thanks for the money, suckers.
Yeah, for you guys.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's here to just kind of enjoy it, write it for what it is. And everybody that's a patron, you guys know what to expect when it comes to the show. Little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be the same thing.
Yep.
You're going to get the little bit of silliness in the bonus episodes. And yeah, I think it'll be great.
So great. So for the first topic of discussion, we're recording the episode on A Clockwork Orange after we record this. And so they're on the brain, the droogs. And Brian, you've attested to this. I probably quote The Warriors once a week.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite films. Clockwork Orange, one of my favorite films. Weirdly, because of all the sexual stuff, I don't know how I like this movie.
Yeah, that seems really strange.
It is. But I think
there's been animes that I've considered watching that have one hint of a rape scene. And you're like, nope. And yet this is one of your favorite films.
But anyway, I've posed this question to Brian, and I pose this question to you, the listening audience. Please let us know on any social media who you think would win. I posit the droogs versus the baseball furies. And I presented this to Brian. Brian, you don't know this. We have diametrically opposed views. So Who do you think would win?
I think the Furies would win. And the reason for that is because when you look at the droogs in the movie, so I only have a specific idea based on the movie. I didn't get a chance to read the book.
Super accurate to the book.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
If it's accurate to the book, then I mean, and all sides basically lead to me believing that the droogs are a bunch of aimless idiots that just get drunk and or high off of LSD of some sort. What do they call it? Macala?
A Korova milk.
Korova. Wow. Okay. Anyways, I can't imagine them having any kind of a game plan. They just essentially go in as chaos. And, I was talking about this earlier when I was saying they go in as chaos, so it's hard for them to really kind of set up a strategy on who and how they would destroy people. But at the same time, how do you plan against chaos? You really can't. So I don't know. I almost feel like I'm like arguing for and against him at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going with the Furies.
So this is the fun part. I think that the droogs would wipe the floor with the Furies. Here's my rationale. The Furies get their ass kicked by the Warriors, which isn't bad because the Warriors are the elite of the elite, right? But let's go basically down to weaponry. That's my big one. I love the old Louisville Slugger. I might hate baseball, but I certainly love a good wallop. I grew up in the WCW era with this Crow Sting, brother. Like, I know all about whacking fools with a baseball bat. But you mean to tell me Malcolm McDowell's got a cane that's got a knife in it? Dim's got a fucking chain? Dude. Right in the old toll chuck,
right
brother.
In the old toll chuck. That's right.
Right in the Gulliver.
I feel like that knife needed to be a little bigger. I don't know. I mean, that's a
it's
big...
It's not the size, it's how you use it, dude.
Yeah, that's it. Because, I mean, that's a decent sized cane.
Yeah, right.
And then there's this tiny little dagger that comes out, and you're just like, okay. Yeah, I mean,
You just got catfished.
Yeah, I did, really, because you see all of these fucking sweet sword canes.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah, and you're like, that is the sheath? Oh, man, I'm talking about a cane, not anything else, guys. And
those sad places in the mall where they have
that girthy sheath.
Like they have a suit of armor in the thing, and they have a bunch of snow globes, and they're like they go, oh, we have vape pens, but we also sell swords. And you're like, what is this place?
Right? Yeah, it's always the sword cane that's hanging on the wall that says, 18 plus. And you're just like, yeah, I'm 18. Let me go take a look.
Yeah, right.
As a kid.
Can I put that on layaway? I have allowance coming in a whole $20 a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I still think the Furies. Yeah. I can't argue that you give it the difference in weapons, right? Yeah. The Louisville Slugger, you're like, yeah, okay, it's a little played out. When you have the variance in weapons, it seems to make sense that they can potentially take somebody out with a chain. You can take somebody out with a knife. You can take somebody out with beating him with a billy club.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
I'll tell you this, I give the fashion to the Furies.
I don't know. I like the droog outfit.
Really?
I do. I really do. I like the cup hanging out on the outside.
As a guy who's done Muay Thai, I've worn enough of those cups to be like,
the jock strap on the outside. Oh yeah, that's great.
So I'm not going to be that guy who's like, well, in the book it's blah blah blah. But in the book, the costume is a little bit different, and each character has like a symbol on the cod piece, which is a little interesting. Kind of wish something like that was in there.
Okay,
but I do. It's inarguably it's iconic, right?
Why do they call it a cod piece?
Because your dick is the fish.
I never understood that. That's what it's called, right? A cod piece?
It is. That's correct. And it is called that from the word cod and the Middle English for both bag and scrotum.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's
right in the cod.
Wow. Essentially very long snocks beneath their doublers and nothing else in the way of underwear.
Okay, I like it.
Well, shit, I learned something today.
Interesting.
Yeah, you gotta love that if you go to codpiece on Wikipedia, because that's like the third or fourth result on Google, it refers to Guar Odorous Urungus. God damn it, I love that band.
Now, if you typed in codpiece on Google Images, well, we won't go there.
I'm not in incognito mode, Brian. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, there's also something to be said about the potency of the image. Think about the amount of time on screen you have the Furies versus the time you have on screen of the Droogs. So yeah, it makes sense that these guys, like the Droogs, are the center of that movie.
They are.
The Baseball Furies are a one-off.
Yeah,
and they fucking rip it, dude.
But interestingly enough, they don't show a lot of the Droogs throughout the film. There's only certain instances where they're all together. Majority of the time, it's just Malcolm or Alex.
Yeah. So just for basis of comparison when it comes to the Warriors, just some of the on-screen gangs that you see, Jones Street Boys, Punks, Gramercy Riffs, Warriors, Moonrunners, Electric Eliminator, Turnbull ACs, the Lizzie, the Orphans, the Panzers, the Van, Corland Rangers, and the Rogues. So that's a lot of competition. The only other actual gang that you see in Clockwork Orange is Billy Boy's gang. Because even when Alex is watching the video later, it's weird because in the way that it's presented is it looks like they're droogs beating up this old man.
Right.
But that wasn't for everybody. That was his gang dressing like that. So when I saw it again this time, I was like, wait, is that supposed to be like they created this film just for him to fuck with his psyche?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I liked it a lot.
That is pretty cool.
Now, which movie do you like better between The Warriors and Clockwork?
You know what? Clockwork Orange, hands down. I had watched this probably, like I said earlier, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird coming out of my mouth. Like, I'm like, wait, I'm not that old.
We were talking about it.
I was. I was probably 12 or 13 when I watched this for the first time. Very much too young to watch this.
Oh, yeah, dude. Because you hear the singing of the rain scene, but you only see the clips. You don't see him actually doing the heinous stuff.
And how fucked is it that you now think of this fucked up movie anytime you see or you hear the song Singing in the
100%.
Rain? Right?
Dude, I had to look up who sang it. I had to look up who Gene Kelly was because I don't watch that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Couldn't care less.
Yeah. But with it being 20 years difference in the time I watched it the first time, it's just memorable. So much about this movie is just like, oh my God, I completely forgot about this, which sounds weird when you say it's memorable, but it just distinctly sticks in your brain to a point where you're just like, I know what happens next.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Is it evocative where you see the image and it triggers like the sensation, like a certain sense of like almost wonder? Because I mean, I've seen this movie a bunch. This is one of the few movies we've covered lately where I actually had the DVD.
Well, it's the milk. Honestly, within the first 20 seconds when you see him drinking the milk, you're like, yep, this brings back all kinds of stuff.
Oh man, it's amazing. And we'll get into it obviously when we do the full form episode in terms of like the substance of the way he created it. So I don't want to go too far there. Then you compare it to the Warriors, and to me, the Warriors has a lot of iconic imagery, but also you have to take into account like I can think of scenes, I can't think of cut frames. When it comes to Clockwork Orange, that movie is so beautiful. I could seriously take single frames of film of this and put it in an art installation. It is like that well constructed.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know instantly what part of the film it's in.
Oh,
if you just saw like one still image, you'd be like, oh yeah, nope, I know exactly what happens before this and after this.
Versus the Warriors, where you're like, that's just some dark
this
place.
is a little vague. Can you give me a little more?
There's just some graffiti and guys running around with vests and no shirts on. What's happening here?
That's it.
Why you titties out, fella? Brian was drinking a beer. I was trying to get him to giggle at why you titties out, fella. Also, if you'd like us to put out new shirts, we have sold out of our first run of shirts. So
awesome.
If there's any quotes you have from us, like why you titties out, fella, please let us know. We'll be happy to start making those.
All right, fuck boy.
Beep, beep. I wonder if that's trademark. I'm sure that has to be trademark or something,
sure
right?
Is. Butt fucking, totally trademarked.
Right? By some lurid individual who has no semblance of reason and decorum like I do.
Who enjoys a bit of the ultra violence.
A real horror show. So did you know one of my favorite ones, like the glossary of terms between Nadzat, which is the language that they use, and Russian. So I can't fucking pronounce it, but the Russian word XOROSO pronounced
Zorso?
Yeah.
Zorso?
They pronounce it horror show. It means the same thing. So that one's one of the ones where it's almost just a Russian word, just pronounced sillier. And like almost like a homophone. It's really interesting. If you've never looked it up, the language is called Nadzat. And I'm not talking about my Nad sack in my pants. I'm talking about a glossary of terms.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I will argue that in terms of violence, the droogs win. I will concede that the droogs can win for fashion, which is your point. So do we have any other criteria upon which to grade these?
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, you can almost kind of grade between the two as far as moralistically, who is...
You don't see the baseball furies raping anybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you consider the droogs the winner as far as having less morals. I don't know how you would grade that. Who has more morals wins?
Morals. Yeah.
Morals. Yeah.
It's more moral. So morals. Yeah, you win.
Yeah. I guess the Furies would win that round.
But then you and I disagree. Oh, yeah. So we both agree the Furies win. Here's a good one. If you see a gender swap cosplay, which one's going to get your dick harder? A female droog or a female baseball fury?
Baseball fury.
Dude, kind of right there with you. Not even going to lie.
Yeah.
I really like dark lipstick. My wife will always make fun of me because I mentioned it one time to her. Like,
yeah, she's like in your fucking dreams.
Exactly. Not on my birthday. Nothing.
Yeah.
This lady over
not
here.
Not on my birthday. Not on Jesus's birthday. Nobody's birthday. Sorry about it.
Yeah, right. No one. Not the savior of our world. Nothing. So that gives us, it's tied at 2 then. We have 2 for droogs and then 2 for baseball furies.
How about this? We leave it to the patrons.
Oh, shit. There you go.
Let's see what you guys think.
Put that shit behind a paywall. We could do that. I don't ever pay paper currency in like a tipping war, but I love the concept of a tipping war.
Yeah.
Like the closest I've ever come is being at like a piano bar and being like, fuck this song, here's $5. You know?
God, it's been so long since I've been to a piano bar. I can't imagine you ever going to a piano bar.
All the time, man.
Really?
DDs, you know?
Well, I guess that makes sense.
And I'm like...
You're like, hook it up with that iced tea, bro.
Iced tea all day. And I really love Elton John and I love a lot of ragtime piano. So being able to be there and singing along. Also, I will say... Girls
hello, my honey. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime
gal. That's me, dude. Yeah. Sometimes way more successful than others. Sometimes chicks are like all about the sober guy who's fun to party. And then some girls are like, you're sober. Like, you have to be drunk. Otherwise, you're going to judge me. I'm like, I feel like it's your own conscience or something. What the fuck? Don't put that on me.
What am I going to notice now that I'm sober?
Yeah. A leaky bum?
Yeah.
I tell you about the girl who puked on me like 3 different times, and then
I think you might have mentioned that.
That's a bad story. We'll put that behind the paywall too. So yeah, I feel like this was a good opening volley.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have recommendations for the next week's episode, we're going to be recording our next Slashers Unslash when we're doing In the Mouth of Madness, which is part of John Carpenter's I think it's Apocalypse trilogy or something they call it. So yeah, Sam Neill. Maybe we could talk about Sam Neill in that versus Sam Neill in Event Horizon. I don't know. I'm not a Patreon patron for myself, so I don't have a say anymore. So, Brian, is there anything you'd like to? Do we want to come up with like new goodbyes?
I don't know,
for this
man.
section. I'm gonna put new music.
You can't put
on
me
this.
on the spot like that. I have to have like a solid day of figuring it out, because
all right,
otherwise I'm gonna be like, if you ain't want to die, you ain't really trying.
I'll tell you this: I've hated my sign off since we started. That's
well,
why I tried
feel
to
like
recreate
there's been a few times where you're like, let me go ahead and check that. Nope, this is what's going on.
I changed the intro though. The movies
you?
and more for those who love
yes,
horror.
you did. Absolutely.
Which is funny because since I did that, we haven't done a single report episode because our numbers. I killed the show briefly when I did Marvel Zombies. People were like, "Oh, I'll check this out," and then the second episode came out, and people were like, "No, I don't care enough."
I'm surprised it wasn't me with the Hammer films.
No, Hammer is actually one of the better ones.
Oh.
The Hammer is the best of the
Oh,
reports.
stop it.
No, in terms of downloads, not in terms of quality. Fuck boy. Beep, beep. Do you have Prince Albert in a can?
Oh, man.
All right, so goodbye, I guess. Oh, also, if there's any music or anything that you want to be in this, I'm going to put one on here. I'm just going to put it on. I'm vetoing what you want. But if you want other stuff to go with this, if you want us to like review music or other things, we discontinued Metal
absolutely.
Monday. Reason we did that, it's not that we don't love metal. I mean, fuck, I've been listening to nothing but sludge all day. But it's just the fear of being pulled down because of using someone's music. But we have no problem talking about it. YouTube's the devil, Instagram's the devil, Facebook's the devil. So algorithms don't have any discretion. They're just going to try and take us down and give us points on our record versus being like, oh, this is satire.
Talk about paywall. Essentially, everything is behind a paywall as far as like being able to operate functionally within all of these platforms.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're paying YouTube however much money monthly to have access to certain things, you're just basically fucked.
And advertising and stuff like that. That's one of the things. You're able to use your transaction history as a means of getting preferential treatment. So if I objected, so for instance, we had a band on the show a few months ago. I'm not going to say them because they were very gracious, but YouTube was the devil in this situation. We used their song. I actually put it on the YouTube version of the show. YouTube completely strikes it. Right, they demonetize our video and everything.
Oh, is this where the band actually was like, no, we allow them to use this? And they're like, nah.
I have emails from him. I have emails from the record label. I have seen their correspondence to YouTube. I have appealed it in every form that we could. Still, it stands there to this day.
Sorry about it.
I have the copyright holder being like, hi, your automated machine didn't do what I wanted it to do. But still, fuck these guys in their garage studio, right?
That's awful.
Anyway, I am mad at it because I've finally tricked them. So if you want other mini reports, you want anything, just let us know. We're happy to talk about. The best thing for me in this show is like being able to learn and extrapolate. Like I'm already listening to audiobooks for next month's episodes and stuff. So let us know.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do it. And we love you. Smoochy, smoochy, kissy, goodbye.